Alrighty, good evening everybody and welcome to yet another edition of the BBC live stream with Chronicles of Illyria. We tonight are going to be looking at the Raiders of the Lost Vault event, and we're going to go over a little bit of the event, but we also have three special guests with us this evening. We have Preacher from the Oceania server who's going for the fourth prize of the Kingdom. We have Bombastus from NA East going for the Sunstone. And we have Vaku on NA West going for the Duchy and the Fighting Style. And I think before we kind of like launch into kind of like, listening to what each of our guests has as their platform, I just wanted to kind of like, I think it's very kind of like specific and relevant to go over once again why crowdfunding is so important to Soulbound Studios at the moment. And that is the fact that, Chronicles of Illyria is a very, very ambitious game. And I think it's part of that ambition that probably drove most of us and, our panel guests today to kind of like saying, hey, we'll take a bit of a gamble and roll the dice on this and invest some money. And I'd probably say donate because I don't think people misinterpret investors and think that we kind of like, we have rights as shareholders and things like that. And so what is important here is that, it takes millions and millions of dollars these days to get just a regular title, let alone a very ambitious title, out there and published. And a lot of the ways that a lot of kind of like the independent studios go is they'll get the project like somewhat along, it'll get a little bit of traction, it'll get an audience in the forums, and then the publishers jump in. And the publishers throw up, the millions and millions of dollars to bring the project to light. But in doing so, they basically, they ask that, oh, you've got to put in loot boxes, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to cut this out, you've got to change that because that's adding another 3 months to development and we want the game out ASAP. So we're getting, the money that we put up front, we're getting back as quickly as possible. And so their interest isn't really in seeing the game come out as it was intended or the vision of the game. They're interested is in getting the game out as quickly as possible in a form that is good enough to start giving them a return on their investment. And so the longer that we can stay crowdfunded, or that Soulbound Studios can stay crowdfunded, the longer they can stave off having to look for a publisher. And the further along the line in development they are, and the closer to launch, the less, say, a publisher is going to have in terms of making actual changes to the game. Guys on the panel, what are your thoughts and comments in regards to that?
Preacher, no, I'll go first.
Okay, yeah, Vaku, you go first.
Yeah, so I think that you're absolutely right. I think SBS needs a lot of funding to get this sort of game off the ground. Like you say, a lot of publishers will try to change the vision of those of SBS's really cutting edge, really ambitious project, including things like you mentioned. You got to do loot boxes, you got to do this sort of thing, that sort of thing, all for the sort of money aspect that really fuels the industry. And while we wish it would all rely on passion, while we wish maybe a donation button would be able to be enough to get people to spend money, we have to participate in all these sorts of events. And I think I'm going to talk about this later, but it's really just behooves us that we encourage SBS to create the best events possible for our community. And I think that's all I have to say right now on that matter.
Yeah, and we will come back to that, Vaku, because you made some of those points in your post. Preacher, what are your thoughts on?
Look, on the back of what Vaku just said then, I think we all need to give kudos to SBS for creating these events to begin with, and not just putting in a second Kickstarter or trying to essentially give people more in-game items. I know a lot of the Kickstarter games come through with more ideas, don't want to besmirch any, but get this new ship. This is how we're going to fund or do this or do that. And I think they really take it to the next level. And I think this is descriptive of both their vision and their game, but also how they engage with the community. They're looking to create something.
If somebody can type in that they're fixing sound.
Yeah, so sorry, what I was saying.
Go ahead, Preacher.
I think it's important to acknowledge what they're trying to do. They're creating story and engaging with the community on a very personal level with these events. We all know that there's a monetary side to these things, and that's important because we still need to fund this game. And as everybody sort of said, it takes a lot of money, but I think we also need to acknowledge the way they go about that, and that's to engage with the community, to create events that gets people excited. Different people have varying levels of excitement through the events that we've seen, but I think the fact that they're trying to do something different and not just putting up a smorgasbord menu where you say, here's your $200 extra thing, here's your $300 MacGuffin that you can go for. It's about getting people engaged. I think that's very important about their business ethos and what they're putting forward.
Yeah, Bombastus, how about your take on it?
Yeah, I think I agree with both of the other comments. It's really important to notice that they're trying all kinds of different things. They're reaching out, and it's really hard to come up with a bunch of different ways to crowdfund anything. As a person who works in his own small business, trying to promote his own small business, it's really hard to come up with something creative that is going to draw people in and say, well, that's different, that's new, I really want to get into that. And the game by itself, as it's proposed, is enough to get the early adopters in. But until we have something to really get our hands on and play with, they have to come up with creative ways to engage us. And the storytelling aspect of it is huge. I think there's a lot of potential in the items that they're giving away in this particular event. A lot of people are saying, well, this is just a loot box event, but you're getting more value out of the box than you put in. And when has that ever happened in a loot box? So it's not predatory. It's filling the world with extra stuff, and that's a great way to develop the game, because we're basically doing the job of a developer. Whenever we buy things with EP and put those into the world, we're fleshing out the world. We're making it more personal and more customized, so that it doesn't look like procedurally generated crap. It looks like a world that somebody went in and hand tailored, and we're paying for the privilege of doing that, rather than them paying another employee to hand comb this massive world and make all of the settlements look good. So I think that's a really innovative way to go about doing it. And people lose sight of the fact that everything that you put into the world is permanently there, and it can be taken away by anybody. And so it fills the world with reality. It makes it feel more real.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do then is kind of like go down each of the candidates. Each is going for basically a different prize on each of the servers, and which is one of the reasons why these particular guests were chosen, but also because of, in part, they each put up, I thought, very, very impressive forum threads to introduce it. So I think we should give the honors of going first to Preacher from the Oceania server, because I think it really, really needs to be pointed out that without the Oceania server, there probably wouldn't be this event at the moment. This event is basically about, how to get the Fourth Kingdom resolved on the Oceania server, and it's kind of like it's expanded out to include the other servers, just so they're not left out, and again have a little bit of a better opportunity for crowdfunding. So without further ado, Preacher, the King of the South in waiting. Let's hand it over to you for 2-3 minutes so you can give us a rundown on your campaign.
Sure. So I've been involved in COE since 2016, probably late around the first Kickstarter. Really building up the community there. As you sort of touched on, Dee, it's unfortunate that the fourth king has pulled out and doesn't want to place his kingdom. So I've been pretty much set up or helped to lay the foundations for two kingdoms now. The first one, which was Carpentaria with King Kalgos, with the first Australian king. Then Lord Viscaro with Zax. When this opportunity came up, I thought I've been doing it as a right hand man, as a part of a collective, and laying a lot of foundations. I really wanted to set something up for myself, or put something out there of myself that other people can subscribe to, rather than being the right hand man or the person behind the king. I felt like I'd done a lot of that work already. I built a strong community. I had a lot of support, people saying that you should run, you should do it. So that's essentially what I've put forward. And I wanted to make something that was a little bit different from what OCE had seen. I've said before that, there's very few very original ideas. I think philosophically we take parts from everything that we like and mash it together. And that's what I've done. And I've created something that I think is paying the respects to Kingdom 4 in terms of the unique tribe that's there. OCE set up a little bit differently to the rest of the services, which is a double-edged sword. We have an archipelago and more tribes in each island than we see in the other kingdoms around the world. So I really wanted to create something unique, and I went for a Mesoamerican thing. Specifically Incan, Mayan, Aztec, and sort of applied that to Kingdom 4, which holds the Dras, Torres, and Genoa. I wanted to create something that's different, and I borrowed ideas and taken some of my old ideas and resurrected them, and really put forward a cohesive platform, because I also feel that's important. There's a lot of cool ideas out there. I personally like Star Wars. It would be cool to have some sort of Jedi Council, Jedi Order thing, but I just can't see how that can relate to COE in its current form. So when I put up my platform, I wanted to put something together that's cohesive, that people could read through and see that, hey, you know what, this guy does know what he's doing. He's created a foundation, the steps or the rungs on a ladder to get somewhere. It looks like a typical Kingdom post, and that's deliberate. I wanted it to do that. I wanted it to outline exactly what somebody that's supporting me, that's putting coins behind me, is getting themselves into. The vision that I've put up, I want it to be fulsome and complete. I've run through as many things as I can. Obviously, some of the state of the game we're in now, some of it's just theory crafting, but that even doing that is a basis for what I can hope to shape and mold with people that support me should my idea get up. And I think it was very important that I put together a cohesive platform, so when people throw their coins behind me, which I very much appreciate, they can see what I'm putting up, and a cohesive theme, the role play elements to that, the mechanical elements I'm thinking about, what my foreign policies are, what my laws I'm looking to lay down are, how the kingdom will essentially run. If I can get them starting to think about that now and lay that spark in there, then that gets people excited, and they can see, and they can settle with confidence, or throw their support behind me with confidence, to know that I've thought out as much as I can at this stage.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I'm going to just very, very quickly do a quick shout out for our own candidate who wasn't able to make it today. Shady, I see that you're in here. If you can type out Boo Dragon in capital letters. We do have somebody going for the duchy from our community of Boardwall on NA East, and they would take coins as well. You can always mention hop on into our own Kingdom Discord, and they'll give you kind of like the lowdown. They're giving away items from the vaults and everything like that. But Shady's been kind enough to put up Malphite's online name for that of Boo Dragon. So let's move on to our next guest. Going for the kind of like in order of the prize is Bombastus of the Order of the Unwavering Light. If you can fill us in on your campaign and what brought that about, etc.
Yeah, so I started my campaign, before we had made any kind of official idea of what we wanted to do, I just wanted to get out early and, you know, really capture people's attention early. So I started out my campaign as just a generic, you know, we want to make a food service or a food aid international organization of some kind. So, you know, to not just lock the stone away and make it benefit a private few, but to maximize its use and offer that benefit to as many people as we can give it to. That eventually evolved into a nightly order designed to keep and protect the stone and also see that it is used for the benefit of all. Now, I've received a little bit of flack from my suggestion that the stone could be used to quote, you know, benefit all. Obviously, I don't intend to feed all of Illyria, but I think that, you know, placed as we are, Alessia is in the middle of the continent, so we have easy logistic reach to anywhere else in the continent. We've got shores on either side of the large gulfs on our server, and so we have the capacity to really spread that wealth around. And if people know they can apply to the aid of the Order of Unwavering Light, if they have a shortfall a few years or several, you know, a decade or so before the long night comes, and they're projecting that they won't be able to make their quotas, you know, we can lend our aid. So the plan is to maximize the mechanical benefits of the stone by giving it the most possible growable surface area, and also, you know, forming other operations around producing food so that there is an easy access of seed and feed for people who need it. We also want to invest in technology that develops to develop food growing capacity in general, and make sure that that is shared widely. You know, once again, it's just a matter of making sure that in the darkest part of the 52-year cycle, as many people who can receive our aid do so.
Alrighty, excellent. And last but not least, Vaku, who on NA West is going for the Duchy and the Fighting Star.
All right, thank you for having me on here. To answer the questions you asked the others, which was how this came about, I started this as, you know, Monday, busy day, reading the announcement, started with the lore. I'm looking at this sort of stuff, and I'm getting more familiar with the event and what it means to actually win these prizes described as grand prize, second runner-up prize. And it ends up appearing to me like the more and more I read it, the more and more this event seems tone deaf to previous complaints that we've had, that we've seen a trend of SBS heading, where we see a lot of issues where money is a leverage power. We understand that the game needs to be funded, but we also see a huge swath of the player base being left out. That huge swath, more often than not, unlike one of my detractors in my thread saying that you're probably going to have 5 or 10 adventures, we're probably going to have thousands of adventures, right? This game is being designed for high adventure. The event is described with the lore as being an adventure where you're going in, risking your life, doing all these sorts of things to make you know, an interesting time of play. And it looks like that for all that the game is aspiring to be, this event in particular, it seems very tone deaf. And so I wanted to echo and call out these sort of observations that I've made in a respectable and precise way, that SBS doesn't get hurt, but then at least understands that at least a swath of players are not okay with how the event is going. And I've created more or less a protest vote to sort of highlight this issue. I've piggybacked on the event's sort of viewers, highlight sort of attention it's getting.
It's amazing
to make this very abundantly
the
clear
you've
that
convinced yourselves
the issues we're facing are issues that sort of attention. I know my constituents don't want to see happen again. So we're seeing things like where it looks more like these items are loot boxes. We have vault supplies and we have dungeoneering items. Dungeoneering items are the things that we're going to populate the game with. And then we have the loot with the vault supplies that we go and take into these raiding expeditions in this window. And out comes what looks like prizes, but are actually what I described in one of my posts as a failure in disguise, right? And what we're trying to highlight in this event is that we can focus on the adventure class. We can focus on the people who haven't spent thousands of dollars on this game. We can focus on people who are outside the community, who we desperately want inside the community and like the Searing Plague, being excited to join and be like, well, popping in, being very active and saying, what's this all about? Tell me about this game. But we're not seeing that in this event, and we understand that as very, very fast paced. Caspian described it as one of his not so great hits of the album. He compared it to an album. Not every band makes a hit. So that's how I'm presenting my observations to this. And I think that if you give the thread a read over, you'll see that I'm very focused on adventures. I have very lowly aspirations for myself. I want to see that what's happening is to ease the creation of a larger COE community. Thanks.
Yeah, I can actually thank you for that. I can actually relate to that on a certain level. We also, being the Monarch of Board War, I get obviously, quite a bit of feedback that comes through to me, and a lot of people were just saying, wow, it's particularly on our server where we have somebody who's fortunate enough in life to be able to have the disposable income to purchase a Double Kingdom, and that's a great thing. I'm not against that in any way whatsoever. But there's the perception, perhaps not the reality, but the perception is that there's very little point in them participating in that, because the amount of money that they again perceive that's going to be thrown at it. And so I would like to, and I'd propose this both kind of like in the public 10K forums and directly with Caspian to almost have it like a proportionate RNG event. So, for example, if Vornair ended up putting $10,000 into the event, and Boardwall, let's say, put in 5,000, and Alicia put in 5,000. No disrespect, but if we just to keep that simple in my head, leave Kairos and Fortuna out of it, then basically what would happen is Vornair would have double the chance of the other two kingdoms of getting the prize. I think that they should have that. The people that put in the most money should have the greatest chance at it. But I kind of like it sticks kind of like in the throats of some of the people here in Boardwall that they, if they would have put in $9,000 and Vornair put in 10, that basically they don't even have a shot at it, even though that they've helped basically almost as much keep the studio running and going, kind of thing. So maybe that's something they look at in the future, because that would allow not just the Wells, but it would allow any group, not just the the Order of the Unwavering Light, etc., but any group that wanted to form and have a legitimate shot at winning the prize. Maybe there would have to be a minimum entry thing of like you'd have to raise at least $1,000 or $2,000 so that you don't have 30,000 people with one coin, all go into the raffle kind of thing. So, maybe there's a minimum threshold that should be looked at. But I think it would engage a lot more people, knowing that they have a legitimate chance. And, what I heard also from quite a number of our members was, they don't necessarily like the way the event is put up, but they'll support it because they support COE, and they want COE to be a success. And they feel that somehow they would be betraying SBS or COE if they didn't participate. So we actually there are a number of what I would call almost like unwilling participants in it. And, bringing it back around to, what Preacher had said originally, at what point are we also not just being spoiled, entitled kids? Because they are putting a tremendous amount of effort into these crowdfunding things, is it just a case you're never going to please all the people all the time kind of stuff? But anyhow, let me start asking you each kind of like some individual questions, etc. Preacher, let me start off with you. And you had you had the comment, I think, in fact, I listened to your shout out to OCE FM, the streaming there. I listened to your interview on that this morning. It's a good interview, by the way.
Thank you.
And the link to that you'll find in the link that we posted to the King of the South thread a little bit earlier. You said that you were going to kind of like encourage raiding, etc. Amongst your community. Are you going to encourage that within your kingdom borders? Are you going to try and have that focus kind of like on the border that you have with Law of Oscara?
Look, I think what we need to understand is kingdoms need to be a lot of things for a lot of people. You can't be a one-trick pony, right? You can't be a one-horse race. You need to be able to provide an outlet for people that want to do PvP, they want to do raiding. You know, like I said in my video as well, interview, sorry, I don't support criminals. I'm not going to say I have a criminal enterprise kingdom, but what I am going to say is those criminals generate story and generate something for other people. So when I say I support raiding, I would support it external to Caprican's borders, and I would support it internal as well. I've 100% would encourage people that if they wanted to conduct themselves in that way, they wanted to go do the raiding thing. You know, some people just like to watch the world burn, and if that's what they want to do, let's focus that on one of my unfortunate NPC nobles, so we can try and perhaps weaken their position and put a player that deserves, you know, that has shown the leadership potential, that's risen to the top through getting involved in the community and gathering people around them. Let's try and insert that person in that NPC's place. I'm all about, you know, being able to give people the opportunity where perhaps their pockets don't allow them that same opportunity. So, you know, I acknowledge that there's people out there, and very good people, that don't have the ability to back the game as we have. But they do have a lot of leadership potential, and they do have great ideas, and I'd love to insert those people in there. So yeah, I will support raiding. For me to say no, I'm not going to support raiding. I don't want anybody raiding external to Caprican's borders only with my authority and consent. I think that that's diluted. I'm not going to be able to stop people doing these things no more than I'm going to be able to stop people being criminals if they want to. So what I will say is, you know, look, I do support that play style, and if they want to do that, that's entirely up to them. You know, if it's not a kingdom sanctioned thing, and you know, piss somebody off, well, you know, unfortunately, that's going to be on you. They're probably going to be ready for you next time you come to raid their village. But this is all part of the game. This is a part about you know, creating these stories and creating these you know, border conflicts or tension between, you know, aristocracy across the border. And I love that, so I'm gonna support that. I'm not going to be put myself up as a raiding kingdom and every other kingdom needs to watch out. It's not what I'm putting out there at all. It's just I'm acknowledging there's a certain play style that people will want to engage in. If they're not happy trying to burn down the NPC village, they're going to try and burn down a player character's village.
Excellent, thank you. Bombastus, moving on to you next, sir. You've created this, or actually it was Fellaine that made the thread. I'm not sure as to who to give credit to. You might be able to clarify that. But you've created this Order of the Unwavering Light. And to many of the people outside of the Free Kingdom, and, you know, generally speaking, not familiar much with the politics of Elysia, other than the fact that during the actual Free Kingdom event, Elysia was perceived as a very divisive kingdom, right? It's you know, Fellaine, who won, was just one of 7 people or 8 people that were vying for the throne, and that it's populated by dukes and counts who have different and sometimes conflicting personalities and agendas and goals. Do you see this event and the way that you guys have gone about in creating this Order of the Unwavering Light, do you see it as being beneficial in helping to unite some of the communities within Elysia by giving them a kingdom-wide goal? How do you see that?
You know, I would say yes.
By
This is an opportunity for the people of Elysia to kind of rally. It's our first opportunity since forming as a kingdom. I'm new to Elysia, so I I can't say for sure that it's as divided as many people claim, but I've educated myself pretty well as one of the community ambassadors about the player composition of almost all of the kingdoms. And I have to say they're pretty similar. Almost every kingdom is full of people who have different goals, different desires, different personalities, and I don't think Elysia is special in that regard. But more than just an opportunity for Elysia, this order, we're trying to frame it as not just for Elysia. It's we have members who have joined the order already on our Discord who are from other kingdoms. It's not about Elysia, it's about the Sunstone. And so while it's King Philaine who is being the person authorizing and establishing and knighting these people, it's not his order either. He did come up with the idea. This was his idea. He really wanted to give something for the role players to bite down on. The other campaigns that were running on our server really didn't have much of a role play feel to them at all, and he felt like people who were interested in getting into the story of the event didn't have that opportunity with Vornier's campaign. And so that was one of the ways that we wanted to distinguish ourselves from the other campaigns. And it's been a lot of fun. A lot of people are getting in there, writing role-play stories, and really getting into the concept of a holy order that believes dearly that some things aren't meant to be held by any one person. And so that's, I think that really fits with the general ethos of the kingdom in general. This is the free kingdom. It's not just for, just for the king. It's not just for the dukes. It's for everybody who's a part of that kingdom.
Excellent. Thank you. Vaku, coming to you, question to you. I had actually prepared a number of questions for you about, what you're going to do with your duchy and blah, blah, blah. And, I presume you're a part of Ashland, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so it's like, I read the thing of how, there are 11 dukes in there, and this would be the 12th duchy, and so I had a bunch of questions there, and then as I read further down, if I'm not misunderstanding, you're looking at that if you do win the duchy prize, you're actually going to cash it in for EP, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's in part because of the limit that we have in the article that Caspian gave us called Solving Title Problems. We also have an issue in Ashland where for there to be another duke accepted into the fold, the person has to receive a unanimous vote of a yes. As you probably maybe experienced reading through my thread, I've got a couple people in leadership who are very upset with me, who are don't think very highly of my reputation. And so that sort of unanimous vote possibility is out of the question. So what happens is either if I win, then if I want to stay with Ashland, it behooves me to then dissolve the title if that's a possibility. If it's either not a possibility or something so bad or drastic happens in which I'm utterly ousted out of Ashland as a result of what goes on in this campaign, then I end up becoming, like Tara Gwyn on Angelica, an independent duke. And for lack of better terms, I'm trying to not step on anyone's toes in that process. It'd be very bad to make anyone particularly upset to then be ousted on my keister for anything that goes on in this campaign, when really it's not about how I perceive the people in these campaign or how I feel may feel attacked or if I want to attack somebody. It's not about that for me. It's about the adventurers. It's about this class of people who are very underappreciated, who even in like I say in the detractors post is given a very low estimate of probably 240 people being drawn to adventure across the entire game, across the 4 servers. So I think that's actually much higher than that. I think Snipe Hunter and Caspian have said in videos that I've linked that this is about high adventure in a lot of cases. And I really want to echo that with this campaign. What we're looking at here is if I do win this, what dissolving that sort of title does for me is it frees me of sort of the complications that would happen if I'm in Ashland or if I end up going to a different place. And allows me to then focus on easing the creation of that sort of community where the people on the bottom rung are necessarily given that sort of attention. So it's really what I would describe as a sort of selfless action to dissolve that title, some sort of sacrifice I'm prepared to make. It also addresses complications that I know that people have spent already thousands of dollars on this campaign for just our server, and particularly, not to mention NA West and other places, where most of the people in the forum you see are actually all competing for second place. And I think that the slim chances of receiving the Sunstone really go only to the people who have the largest wallets in this case. So it's really important to make that sort of consideration. Make sure that I'm planning as thoroughly as I do plan in my thread and all my posts. I go on to break down the gambling problem that I see, or a quasi-gambling problem that I see as a result of this campaign. I break it down to how that translates to needing to dissolve the duchy. I break that dissolution of the duchy into how that translates into what happens with that combat style and how that sort of benefits people. And then, you know, there's so much reading material in this.
Yes.
Each
of you, it took me, I would say, probably a cumulative hour to read through all 3 threads today. Again, you know, kudos to all of you for putting in, you know, so much. Each one's such a diverse thread to read. It's very interesting to read kind of like the different things on that. Preacher, coming back to you, we'll try to squeeze one more round of questions in for each of you. You had mentioned, you know, when I was watching your interview, you had mentioned that kind of like the Ogham and the Madari were kind of like your first choices of tribes, and obviously, you know, they've now become part of the Lost Tribes, and you have a very distinct culture with your kind of like the Mayan aspect and theme that you have for the Fourth Kingdom down there with the Genoa, which was your third choice of tribe. What are your goals? Let's say a year or 2 years into the game, when the second kingdoms, the second continents are going to be discovered, and you're going to find the Madari and you're going to find the Ogham. Are you going to remain as king of the South, or do you envision perhaps, you know, handing that over to somebody, or letting it become kind of like a fight, kind of like, you know, arena combat, the survival of the fittest, and you set up something new with the Ogham and the Madari? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So, I mean, I think the first step is what do I want to do? I think there's distinct levels of where I feel that the kingdom will be. I want to head towards an oligarchy with what I've termed an elective oligarchy, where the dukes acknowledging their either financial contribution or effort contribution to get that ducal title will remain as a decision-making body with me first among peers. But when we hit maturity, so hopefully, you know, I'd like to think within that year we can also elect people that will join, you know, that oligarchy, and it doesn't matter what title they just have to have support of the people. So where do I want to be in a year? I would like to think that me being the person, the fundamental driver of the kingdom and whatnot would probably be lessening. I would like to be able to sit back and watch other people get involved and other people rise through the ranks and begin to form their dynasties. Would I still be king? That is ultimately up to the people. I think a lot of people are still forgetting that, you know, a king is one person. Dukes are a handful of people. You know, you need to have the support of the people. It's a two-way relationship. You know, you lead and nurture and provide for the people, and in essence, they give you authority. They give you legitimacy, and they give you the power to make your vision a reality. So if I'm still needed, of course, I'm still going to be there, because a lot of people have thrown their support behind me, and I don't want to let them down. Within 2 years, you know, I'd like to see that natural progression of somebody else taking the crown. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't want to be, you know, dictator for life or anything like that. If, you know, somebody else steps up and they've got a spark and a passion for the vision that I've created and want to take the reins for that and have the support of people, I'm all for that. There'll be no need for a hostile takeover. I'm no longer required, and there's somebody else that's got a better vision there. I'm more than happy to reserve myself for my duchy and go out exploring and create a, Medario or something. Like, I don't know, if I find the Medari or find the Ogham, I'll see what's out there in the new lands and mix and intermingle the tribes and see what's available. Like, I don't want to limit myself. It's a broad question and it's an important question, but I think more focused on where we're at now with the kingdom. I don't see it as important that I try and maintain my foothold over the long game. If somebody else comes that's got a spark and they want to do it, I'm all for that, and they have the support of the people, then I'm behind that.
Cool. Thank you for that. Bombastus, I was going to ask you next, but I just want to address a comment that just came up in the chat there, and that's Boston Tea Party asking why the Ninja advertisement from Ceruleum and Boardwall getting my ad revenue. Disgusting. Basically, fuck off. We're giving everybody here a platform. We're giving people on Oceanus a platform. We're giving people on NA West a platform, people on NA East. And as a matter of fact, we're not represented with our guests here. So, I don't think it's a big deal for them to have put that in. And it was actually done at my suggestion to those individuals. So if you have an issue with it, message me in Discord afterwards. I'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one chat with you regarding that. All righty. So, Bombastus, coming back to you, sir. In one of your quotes there, you had mentioned, I don't know if this was, I think this is in Tolane's thread, not in yours. Should the Knights fail in their initial bid for the stone, they will seek to recover the artifact post-launch through the best means possible. What exactly does that mean? Is it limited to kind of like the best means is just one means, like where you negotiate for it or you buy for it? Or does it expand to the best means possible is you've got kind of like a list of 4 or 5 different options? And, the question that's on everybody's lips and nobody's asking is, would it go as far as being a military option to try and capture the stone by force if Vornair was to get it? What's your thoughts and comments on that?
So that statement is deliberately vague because we don't know what the best means possible will be. I've laid out in response to that challenge in other areas some of the possibilities that it could mean. For instance, perhaps, as you say, we will attempt to barter for it or buy it, or perhaps the order will leave Alesia and go to wherever the stone is and pledge themselves to the holder of the stone. Perhaps, perhaps it will come to war. It's not really up to me, and it won't be up to King Flane either, I don't think. It'll probably be up to the Grand Master of the Order, what they choose to do and what they deem are the best means possible. I hope they will take our suggestions as the Duke and the King of Alesia and take our guidance in what those best means are, especially considering the geopolitical situation and our close proximity of Vornair. But I don't think it's our intent to say that we're going to go to war as a kingdom over this stone. But once again, that's really up to whoever ends up becoming the Grand Master of the Order.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Baku, last question to you, sir. And that is, if you're going to be cashing in your duchy, the fighting style, I think, was described as being a flail and offensive shield. Would you be keeping that kind of like private to yourself? I think you mentioned it a little bit in your post that you'd make it available to kind of like a select few or something. Give us a brief description of what you intend to do with that.
Yes, that's correct. It is a flail and offensive shield style, and I describe how I think that what is necessary is to distribute the style however the mechanics allow. So suppose that to distribute the style, it requires that the receiver of the style has a certain mastery of one-handed weapons. I can't then say whoever donated 5,000 coins then gets the style first without having met those prerequisites. So I make an allusion to that about that being necessary. So I'm trying to divvy out the style as mechanically sound as I can. Another things, issues might rise up are issues of proximity. Suppose you're across the entire continent. How am I going to give you the style first? How am I going to be able to do that efficiently without putting, maybe if it's a physical book that you have to get, putting that book in jeopardy, sort of thing. So we're going to have to work out those mechanical issues. And I make a very thorough point in virtually all my issues about what's mechanically sound and what's the right thing to do. And the right thing to do is really to give out this fighting style as selflessly and as efficiently as possible. I want to be able to have the first generation of people learning this fighting style to be able to study how to make themselves excellent at it, right? So I talk about working on excellence with these sort of things. I know a lot of people who are very PvP minded like myself enjoy learning how to fight very well. I have got a history of that, and in like 2013 I show up a little vintage post of me trying to make a warring society where we have a lot of combat oriented players teaching less apt players how to go about doing their combat. So I've got some history in trying to share skill with other people, and I want to see that sort of legacy of mine carried on if I were to receive this sort of style. And that's virtually it on that sort of subject.
Cool, thank you. Well, we're getting towards the end of the show, but I want to give each of you the opportunity of another, if you can keep it, if possible, to 60 to 90 seconds each to wrap up and give you kind of like your going away plugs and speeches and whatever to try rustle up some more coins in the 5-6 days that we have left of the event. Preacher, go ahead first, sir.
Guys, I really appreciate the people that have supported me to date. It doesn't matter how many coins you have. I really appreciate the words and the support that you've given me. I appreciate anybody that wants to come to the aid of my platform and help make Capricorn a reality. Hopefully I've put my best foot forward. I've put a thought out, laid out foundational posts that everybody can work on. And what I want to say is I wish all the other contenders on OCE the best of luck. And if you'd like to support me, I'm sure there'll be a link somewhere, won't there, Dee?
Yeah, Noz, if you can put the links for all three of them up again, that would be great as we're closing out. Bombastus, your 60 to 90 seconds to give your final words on your campaign.
Well, first, let me say thank you to everybody in the community who's donated. I am not by any means a whale, and I come from a kingdom of people who are not whales, and so we're really hitting the grassroots effort hard. And I don't agree that the people who have the big wallets are gonna, are gonna win this. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion. The community was seeded with thousands and thousands of coins. And all we have to do is wake those people up and get them interested in our campaign. And so that's been our real focus, and we're going to continue to go on that focus because this is a community event, and our goal is to make sure that the prize serves the community. And I think that people are really resonating with that, and I think we have a fantastic chance at winning this prize. So if you've been holding onto your coins because you're not sure that Bombastus can win it, I guarantee you we can. So keep up the donations, keep up the support, and we'll get this done.
Wonderful, thank you. And Vaku, for yourself, how would you like to wrap up things this evening? Was I pressing the wrong key? I might have been pressing the wrong push to talk.
Yeah. Okay. So proceeding the sort of first round of discussion, first round of questions we had, you'd mentioned how a lot of the players are unwilling participants in this event, either for love or impulsivity, as I described. We're drawn to the event, and it's a foregone conclusion that SBS needs to make money, and how we're going to go about supporting that endeavor, how we're going about letting this be a record to our acknowledgement of how they're that they're performing these sort of events. I think it's necessary that you exercise your vote with some conscience behind it, and not just as a matter of loyalty to whomever's the next liege above you, but as a matter of necessarily letting SBS know that money as a leverage of power isn't the best recipe for success for events. If all sorts of methods of making money were built equally, we'd have like a singular donation button, but we know it's not. We know we can deconstruct these sort of events, and we can discern that, you know, some ways of getting money are better built. The way we want SBS to build it is what's important in this event and how we cast our vote. So be sure to take a look at my thread. It can be really hard to read, but in the first part of the page, I make it very easy to skim and read very short tidbits to see if my message sort of lines with your preconceived notions, not on a basis of loyalty, not on a basis of anything else, but as a matter of conscience. So I hope you give that a read, and thank you for having me here.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I want to thank, you know, all of our viewers that have tuned in here over the holidays. We had a few less than usual, but people are probably still comatose from Turkey and, you know, doing stuff with the family, etc., etc. Definitely want to thank my three guests here, Preacher, Bombastus, and Vacu, for taking the time and the effort to come and let us know a little bit more about their campaign. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in around about 2 weeks' time for our next live stream.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.